No. All right. Okay, I think we're ready to begin. Councilwoman?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I want to make sure everyone knows this is being recorded so that, sorry about that. LBUSD always calls during this time to remind the parents. Sorry about that. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that the Zoom session is being recorded so that people who could not join us right now can access it later and that we can share this later. So I just want to welcome everybody to the monthly District 6 Community Update Meeting. This month, in recognition of National Disaster Preparedness, we are surprise focusing on emergency preparedness. I want to thank Reggie Harris, our Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Communications Director, Sarah Ortiz, our Communications Center Supervisor, and Rebecca Lopez, our Administrative Analyst, for being here tonight and doing the presentation. And thank all the interpreters for doing our interpretation, and thank Annie for her hard work in preparing this, and Jasmine for helping with the outreach and making sure our community knows about this, as well as Raymond. I know that they always do regular flying outreach to our diverse community to making sure, as well as Malika, who's on here. But I want to make sure my team had a chance to introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Annie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Chen, and I'm the Policy Director for Councilwoman Sulisaro. I'll pass it on to Chork.
Good evening. My name is Chork Lim, Chief of Staff, Councilman Sulisaro.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jasmine Piceno, and I'm Field Deputy for Councilwoman Sulisaro, and I'll pass it on to Sakun.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sakun Man. I'm the Community Relation Aide for the 6th District, Sulisaro. I'll pass it Malika.
Hi, good evening. My name is Malika Long. I'm the Community Affairs Deputy for Councilwoman Sulisaro.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I wanted to make sure everyone knew who my team is. They work really hard and I appreciate them. So public safety is one of my top 3 priorities. And I think that people don't realize that emergency preparation, disaster preparedness is part of that. And tonight's goal is to make sure that residents are provided with the knowledge to respond effectively in emergency situation and make sure that they're accessing the resource they need. And I think that people probably know this, but they don't think about it until the last minute that disaster happens when you least expect it, right? Which is why it's so important to be prepared. And that is where, sometimes we take it for granted that it seems like, oh, yes, of course you should do this and this. But I think it's so important that we hear from our expert staff to share. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Reggie to lead us to the next section of the presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, residents of the 6th District, for this opportunity for us to give you an update on disaster preparedness and emergency communications. Thank you, council member. Again, you and your staff visited the center and within your first days in the office very, very early. It was evident that disaster preparedness was a priority for you, and we really do appreciate that. Appreciate you being at our big disaster preparedness expo as well a couple of weeks ago over at Cal State Long Beach. A very, very hot day out there, and we appreciate your support. And you're exactly right. Disasters can occur at any time, and in Long Beach we have multiple types of disasters that we have to prepare ourselves for. Probably the disaster that's of greatest concern to us is an earthquake, because of the many, many fault lines that crisscross our city and throughout Southern California, actually. But before I get into the meat of the presentation, let me just give a sort of a brief overview of the department first. So we work very, very closely with the police and fire department and emergency management, as well as the 911 center as well. So in terms of disasters, our police and firefighters handle really large incidents every day. They do a wonderful job out in the field and in managing those incidents. It's only the incidents that are beyond the resources of our police department, fire department, or health department that we then activate this center, this big room behind me. We're actually located at the corner of Spring and Redondo, so we're outside of City Hall. We kind of like that, actually. We have a large room that we call our situation room, and right behind me, you can't see it from where you are right now, but it's where all of the necessary staff throughout the city would come to manage a disaster. So representatives from the city manager's office, from gas and oil, utilities. We would have police and fire representation. Obviously, during COVID-19, we had lots of representation from the during COVID-19, we had lots of representation from the health department. And then as well, as we're currently in our homelessness crisis, we again have lots of representation from our health department because they are the subject matter experts in that area. But in addition to our city staff, we also bring in representatives from the various utilities that we need as well. So San Diego, so the electrical utilities, we would bring them in, water, transportation. We bring in all of those representatives as well into this. So we're a two-story building. So on the bottom floor, we have our disaster preparedness staff. And then on the upper level, on the second floor, we have our dispatchers, police, fire, and emergency medical dispatchers. Last year, our dispatchers received in excess of 600,000 calls for service. That's an extremely large amount of calls for service. This is second only to Los Angeles City and County. We're one of the largest dispatch centers in the region. And when you're large in Los Angeles, in this county, that means that you're pretty large across the country as well. We're really, really proud of the work that our dispatchers do. Fortunately, not all of those calls were for disasters that require, emergencies that required a police or fire or emergency medical response. About 60% of those calls, in fact, were for non-emergency incidents. Those are for resources and services that did not arise to the need to dispatch our police or firefighters. And so we're really, really concerned about that because the time that dispatchers spend on non-emergency calls means that there's less time to spend on emergency calls. And so we've launched a program, Help Us, I Help You, and we're rolling that out. I think we've done a press release and we have an editorial coming out to really educate the public on the many, many resources that they can get information regarding non-emergency services without calling our center. In preparation for today's meeting, we sent over a lot of our resource material that we have, all of our outreach material regarding various types of disasters. We have pamphlets that we make available to the public, and all of our pamphlets are in Spanish, English, Khmer, Tagalog. So we cover all of those. Councilmember, I think we delivered a package to your office yesterday, so hopefully you have that and some additional copies as well for resources for your community center. So it's all accessible. And of course, our staff is available to make presentations like this at other community events as well. So again, I thank you very much for inviting us here. I'm going to be joined in this presentation with Rebecca Lopez. She's our Disaster Preparedness Analyst, and Sarah Ortiz. She is one of our great supervisors that we have in the 911 center. So, Councilmember, this slide might be familiar to you. You saw this slide when you came over during your first 100 days, and we talked about the 6th district that contains many of the city's icons. 3 of our hospitals are located in the 6th district. Long Beach City College located there. Long Beach Poly High School is there.
Oh, we no longer have College Medical Center, just Memorial and St. Mary's due to redistricting now, I believe.
Okay, so we'll update that slide. And then of course you have your business district, Cambodia Town Business District, that is always growing. And we have this slide to really illustrate these are the many attributes of the district, but with each of these attributes, there comes a level of risk. And that's what our job is in working with police and fire to understand those risks and also to work with residents so that they can understand how they can mitigate the risks. We're concerned, obviously, unfortunately, active shooter events that could occur over at Poly or Long Beach City College. We're concerned, obviously, with our earthquakes. We have a very, very dense district in the 6th district, vulnerable communities there. We're really concerned about the impacts of a major earthquake, a disaster of some other type that might occur there. And we're concerned for our hospitals as well to ensure that they stay operational during a disaster, because our residents are going to need access to those hospitals to help themselves overcome a disaster. So just briefly, I wanted to talk about some of our emergency alert systems that we have. Our primary alert system that we have is the Alert Long Beach system. I'm hoping that all of the residents, you've all taken a lot of time from your busy schedule to be with us today, and I'm going to ask you to do one more thing as well. If you have not already signed up for Alert Long Beach, please do so. This is our major mass notification system to notify the public of a major emergency or a disaster. When you sign up, you can indicate how you would like to receive your notification, whether it's via your phone, text, or an email. You do have to sign up to receive it. And obviously, this is not our only means of communicating with the public. We have a number of redundancies in our program, including Spirit, that you're going to hear some about during the program. Obviously, our police and firefighters would be out in the field as well, notifying the public. So we have a lot of redundancies because we know that cell phones aren't perhaps going to work during a disaster. But this is our mass notification system. Alert Long Beach, go to our website, sign up for Alert Long Beach. Hoping that a number of you know that you can also download an app, MyShake, to get whatever brief notifications that we can provide on an earthquake. So MyShake works through state-of-the-art technology that monitors movement of the earth, and it will give you a notification of a 4.5 or greater earthquake, magnitude earthquake in Los Angeles County. Seconds. It may be seconds of notice that you would get depending on how close you are to the epicenter, but with those seconds, there is an opportunity for you to take protective actions, and we really want our residents to do that. And then the final piece of technology that I wanted to just share with you is our wireless emergency alert system. So earlier I said Alert Long Beach, you have to sign up for, but this wireless emergency system that we have requires no sign up. It's much like the Amber Alerts that you get, and we would simply send that message to cell phones that are connected to the cell provider. So that'll go out to everyone, regardless of whether or not they've signed up. But we utilize wireless emergency services for extreme events. Most importantly, Alert Long Beach is our mass notification system. Right. So, as Councilmember mentioned, that this is National Preparedness Month, September, and we're wrapping up all of our activities associated with that. And then comes October, and October the 19th is the Great Shakeout. Formerly, this was called the Great California Shakeout Earthquake Drill, but now this earthquake drill is recognized nationwide throughout the world. Actually, more than 40 million people participated in this shakeout earthquake drill activity last year. It takes place on October the 19th. 10:19 is the time that we want residents to take part in this exercise. You can do it at home. You can do it in your office. You're going to simply drop, cover, and hold on. And we illustrate here a number of different ways that you might do this, depending on mobility issues or other kinds of issues that you're dealing with. There's still the opportunity to drop to the floor so that you're not knocked over by the earthquake. Cover your head to avoid having debris or other things falling off of the walls, hitting in your head, and then hold on. Hold on until the shaking stops or until you get the all clear. Earthquakes come without warning. Other parts of our city are also concerned about tsunamis, and tsunamis do provide a degree of warnings, but earthquakes do not provide a warning other than perhaps for a few seconds that you might get from the my shake. So being prepared, understanding that you need to be prepared to be self-sufficient for about 5 days in the event of an earthquake, having your to-go bag all ready to go. And Rebecca's going to talk a little bit more about that during her part of the conversation. But intuitively, people run during a disaster, emergency, major emergency. That's our inclination as humans. We're going to run, the adrenaline gets the pumping, and so we want to move. But in an earthquake, what we really need residents to do is to shelter in place, shelter in an area where you have cover for your head. Stay there if it's safe to do so until the all clear sign is given. So, and we're going to be putting out a lot more information to residents over the course of the next couple of days regarding preparation for our great shakeout event. I think that's my part of the presentation. I'm going to transition on over to Rebecca Lopez, our Disaster Preparedness Analyst.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Lopez, and I am the Disaster Preparedness Analyst here with the City of Long Beach Department of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Communications. And as the Councilwoman and Reggie mentioned, September is National Preparedness Month, which is our largest campaign of the year. And really the backbone of this campaign is speaking to residents like yourselves about what to do to plan and prepare for emergencies and how to get your household and families ready in the event of a disaster. So just in kind of theme with that, we want to go over some tips on preparedness. That way you can learn things to help your family and your neighbors stay safe. So here we have some ideas for what can I do as a resident. So the first thing we want to talk about is make a plan. So these are things like developing a communications plan with your loved ones. So who do you call when a disaster strikes? Who's going to be your emergency contacts? Do you have your neighbors' phone numbers or loved ones that live outside of the area that you can reach out to in the event of a disaster? And if so, make sure you have these numbers handy. Your cell phone may not work, so always having a hard copy of names and phone numbers is always helpful as well. Know your evacuation route. So as long as you know where to go when disaster strikes, if you have to leave your home, it's good to know where to go before that happens. So always know your routes, practice them during the day, during the night. Different types of weather will help you really become familiar, and it'll lessen the fear that you have when it's time to evacuate because you're confident in where you need to go. And then the last thing in this section is learning basic first aid and CPR. So just preparing yourself and your family, knowing those basics will really help you in the event that you need to use them. And we'll talk a little bit more in a couple of slides about where you can go to receive those sorts of training. The next step is packing a go bag. So Reggie mentioned having a go bag ready, and what that is an emergency kit that you put together that is right next to your door that if you need to leave your house, you can grab and go. So what that means is there are things that you can pack ahead of time, like canned food or a bottle of water. And then there's other things that you may need to grab as you're walking out of the door. So that's wallets, keys, any extra medications that are needed right away. Just make sure that you have those in an accessible place that you can pack it in that bag and take with you as soon as you need to leave. And then I just wanted to let you know that we do have checklists available. Our department puts together an emergency planning guide. And in that guide, we have a full list of all of the different sorts of items we recommend that you pack in your go bag. Next, it's get alerts. Reggie mentioned about our Alert Long Beach system, so we recommend that all residents sign up for Alert Long Beach because it is an opt-in system. We do require that you sign up and approve any messages that we send to you. It's always a great idea. We always make sure that our residents are signed up, and we talk about this all the time. Alert Long Beach is the #1 way to receive messages in the city, so we always recommend that you sign up for that. And then second, follow trusted social media channels. So what that is the City of Long Beach's social media platforms, local news channels, federal agencies like FEMA. They're all going to have information on preparedness and planning, and any updates on disasters will be available through the social media platforms as well. And then lastly, follow the instructions of first responders. Police and fire are going to let residents know if they need to evacuate or if they need to shelter in place. Always heed their instructions and make sure that you're following it. Whatever they say, whether they tell you to evacuate as soon as possible, make sure you're doing that, or if they tell you to just hold tight until more information comes forward, make sure you're following those instructions as well. Fourth, help your community. So what this means is the information that you're learning here today with us, share that with your friends and family. If you have neighbors that couldn't make it today, these are the types of information that we want you to share with them. It's important that you provide the information to your loved ones so that they're also prepared in the event of a disaster. Request trainings and resources from not only the city government, but also local organizations like the Red Cross or local hospitals that may offer trainings and classes as well. All this will do is just help you be more prepared, help you be more resilient, and help you to learn to navigate when a disaster strikes. And lastly, provide assistance where you can. If you have a special skill, if you're a nurse, or you know how to do electrical work and a disaster strikes, those skills are useful, and your neighbors may need the assistance. So just talk to your neighbors, let them know what sort of skills you have that you can provide in the event of a disaster, and you can all help each other out. And then lastly, build a stay bag. What a stay bag is if it's safer for you to stay home, we always recommend that you put a box together for food and water in the event that your electricity or power runs out. So that's canned foods and clean water that you have stored for up to 3 days until either you can leave to go to a shelter or somebody can come and provide assistance to you.
Where's a good place to put the stay bag? I never know where to put it because then I worry, well, what if the ceiling collapses and I can't get to it?
Right. So that's why there's a difference between a go bag and the stay box. So typically the go bag, which is what you're going to grab when you're walking out of the door, should be somewhere that's easily accessible as you're walking out. So that could be like a little side table that you may have by your front door or just on a coat hanger that's next to your exit. And then the stay box just really depends on whether or not you have mobility issues. Some folks are bedridden and may not be able to leave their bedroom. So a stay box would be more appropriate in their bedside. If you have a spot where maybe for an earthquake, you know, is a safe space, like a bathroom where there's no windows, you may want to keep a box like that somewhere there where you're going to go to when a disaster hits. Next, we'll go over the CERT team. So CERT is a Community Emergency Response Team, and it's managed by our Fire Department Community Services Bureau. And currently they have 300 active members, which means that these are members that are actively engaging in meetings, going to trainings and exercises, and when things like the hurricane hit, they're out there filling the sandbags and helping the fire department with resources and help to the community. CERT is a great training to receive. We recommend that all residents, if they can, they become CERT certified. Some of the training that you receive as a CERT member is fire safety, including how to use a fire extinguisher, disaster medical, which includes triaging, mass casualty incidents, and hazmat training, search and rescue procedures, and then they also do a module on terrorism or see something, say something, focusing on running, hiding, or fighting during a terrorist incident or active shooter incident. The CERT team has a specialized committee. Right now they have a radio communications committee, which is for ham radio volunteers. So if any residents have any ham radio background or interest in that, CERT has a committee for you, and you're more than welcome to join. They're looking for new members all the time, so it'd be a great opportunity for you to get out there and network with some of the folks with that same specialized hobby as well. Sign up for CERT can be done 2 different ways. So right now, the waitlist is very long for the CERT in-person course through the fire department. So you can join the waitlist. We have links here. We'll provide the slides to you all after the presentation is over. But you click on the link, you sign up for the waitlist, and they'll get in contact with you when classes begin again. Or you can complete the course online with the University of Utah. And then once you're done, you get a certification, you email the CERT team, and then they put you on a wait list for a hands-on only training, which is done a lot faster than the full in-person training. So that's a little bit of a faster way to get that certification done. The in-person course is conducted over 3 days on a weekend, so Friday to Sunday, and it's a total of 20 hours. And that's all explained to you when you sign up. They'll reach out to you with more information on the scheduling and how the flow of the class will go. And then lastly, for my section, I just wanted to give an overview on where you can receive first aid and CPR certification trainings. So CPR certification is offered by our Long Beach Fire Department. There's a number right there on the screen that you can call to schedule that training. It's also offered by the Red Cross. So the CPR trainings can be offered through whichever venue is easiest for you. The Red Cross also provides first aid training, and they can also do classes together, both CPR and first aid. So that may be a better option for folks who are interested in getting certified under both sides. The Red Cross first aid training has 3 different ways of the course. It can either be online, in person, or hybrid. And then we have the link there on the slide that you can follow to get that training, sign up, and see where it's being offered closest to you. And that's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to Sarah Ortiz, and she's going to discuss the 911 operations.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me this afternoon or this evening. A few things I want to talk about with you guys is when you should call 911 versus calling the non-emergency line. A lot of people in the community don't seem to realize that it's the same dispatchers that are answering the same calls, the same line, the same room, and we're dispatching the same officers to calls for service. So a few things, calling 911 versus the non-emergency, 911 will always surpass the non-emergency, which is actually a great thing for the community. So if you're calling non-emergency regarding somebody blocking your driveway, that could be extremely frustrating. However, if there's somebody potentially having a medical emergency, that will surpass that call for us to answer and for us to help. So things to call 911 are reporting a crime in progress, any suspicious activity that you might be witnessing, any property crimes or burglary in progress. Definitely call 911 if you or a loved one is experiencing a medical emergency. If you see a fire, if you see what you believe is an injury accident when passing by, definitely call 911 for all of those things, because that will surpass the non-emergency calls, which are just as frustrating to the community and important, but it's just so we can get to those callers first. Some non-emergency calls might be parking issues, someone in the red zone, somebody blocking your driveway, somebody that might have left some property, a bicycle on your property that you need removed, and things of that nature. Again, they're just as important and just as frustrating, but it's just so we can get to those medical emergencies, those potential house fires and things like that first, and that can be a priority for our first responders. Things that you might expect us to ask, a lot of times as a supervisor, I get asked, why are my dispatchers asking so many questions? Why can't they just come here and see the issue once we get here? It's so we can provide the best resources for our community. The first thing we're always going to ask is, what is the location of the emergency? That way, we can at least get our police officers and our firefighters driving over there to help while we're asking our other questions in progress. A lot of people maybe not realize when you call 911 from a cell phone, we don't know exactly where you're at. What we receive is a cell tower, which is extremely accurate and extremely helpful. However, if you're inside a certain apartment number, it's not going to show that. If you're inside the alley and not in the front of the house, it's not going to show that. So if you're able to articulate the best you can where you're at, that's very helpful for us. If you're in a place where you're not really sure, if you can provide cross streets or locations like Jack in the Box, 7-Eleven, and then we can work with you on trying to find where exactly that you're at. And then we're going to want to know what is happening. We want to know if it's a domestic violence, if it's a traffic accident, if it's a house fire. That way we can get the proper resources to you. Also, when it occurred, a lot of times we'll get that it just occurred because the community member is just realizing that this happened to them. They're waking up in the morning and they're seeing their car is gone. To a community member, it might feel like this is just happening to them. However, when it might have happened several hours before, just as important, just as devastating, but it kind of helps us prioritize our calls on how fast we respond versus somebody seeing their stolen vehicle drive off right in front of their eyes. Also, who's involved? Are we talking to a witness? Are we talking to our victim? Are we talking to a loved one that they might have called first? It helps paint the picture to our officers and our firemen of how we're going to respond. What weapon was used? A lot of times when we hear weapon, we don't know if it's a gun, a knife, a baseball bat. Helps the safety for our first responders as well as a safety for the community on knowing what kind of weapon is involved. Is anyone injured? So we can dual response with police and fire. We don't want to send a police officer when someone also is badly injured on top of being a victim of a crime. So we want to make sure that we're sending the proper resources as fast as we can. Might feel like a lot of questions when you're in having the worst moment of your life, but this is for us to help you and us to get the best resources to you. Another big thing, what if I accidentally call 911? This happens all the time. We put our phones in our purses, we put our phones in our pants, we go out for a jog, the phone's not locked, it accidentally calls 911. What we really appreciate is just to stay on the phone with us. It happens all the time. We're not mad at you, we're not shaming you. We just would rather know, hey, I'm sorry I accidentally called, and we say, okay, have a good day. If you hang up because you're embarrassed and you didn't know what to do, now we have to ensure that you're okay. So we have to call you back if you don't pick up and we thought we heard maybe some sort of argument or potential violence. We have to find out where you're at. We'll look for subscriber information. We'll call the phone company. We have also a system called Rapid SOS, which helps us locate your cell site. So this is taking potential resources on just a total accident away from helping other people. So please just stay on the line. Let us know it's an accident. We get these all the time, all day, especially with cell phones. We have our kids that want to play on their phones and they accidentally call us. It's very common. So just don't be embarrassed. Just let us know. And guess what? You're helping another member of your community because we can go on to helping them on the phone. And call if you can, text if you can't. So we do have a 911 text system that we have, which is a great resource if you are in a potentially very dangerous situation where you can't talk because maybe the suspect is there or you're not sure if they're there. You don't want them to hear you. You're a potential domestic violence victim and you don't want your spouse or loved one to know that you're calling 911. However, we know just talking to each other and texting each other as friends and family members, we get miscommunication quite often. We might not read the correct tone. We will have to wait for the response. If you guys have teenagers like I do, sometimes I don't get a response for another 10, 15 minutes. So if you can call us, that's always great. If you can't, it's a great resource that we have. We've had a couple of really success stories with domestic violence victims, as tragic that it is, but we were able to get them help when they couldn't talk to us. Translations, we have a translator service that we've had for as long as I've been here, which has been over 20 years, which is helpful because a lot of people feel like they can't call 911, they can't call the police for help because they don't maybe speak English, they feel like they might have a thick accent, they feel like they're not going to be helped and understood properly. So we have 150 plus languages that we utilize. In Long Beach, it's very common for Spanish and for Cambodian, which we utilize on a daily basis. So please never hesitate to call the police for help or the fire department for help because you feel like you might not be heard and understood. We use that very commonly every day. It's a great resource for us. And then speech impaired, we have a system called TTY. What it is it pops up on our screen and we can type almost like a keyboard texting style to the victim or the community member for help. So also, if you or a loved one have issues with speech impaired or hearing impaired, please don't let that also hesitate to call us for assistance. We're hiring our dispatchers. We are definitely hiring police and fire dispatchers. The salary range is above $25 to $37 an hour. We have great dental and health. We have paid vacation. We have CalPERS. We have a great retirement here in the city of Long Beach. If you're interested or know someone that's interested, join LB 911 is the page to go to. We also recently revamped our Instagram that has a lot of very helpful information with Long Beach 911. And also, if you're just curious what your dispatchers are up to, we like to post things that are going on in the rooms, both police and fire, just so you can feel like a part of us and the community can kind of feel attached to us and know what's going on with your dispatchers, know our faces, see who you're talking to, and we really try to be involved more with the community with that as well. Thank you, and any questions that you guys might have, I'm free for anything. Please let me know.
Let me just do this, Councilman, before we do questions, I just want to wrap this up in terms of our presentation. It was our last presenter. I'd like to add as well, maybe a lot of people on this call might know me. I've been with the city for 27 years, and I've been the director of a number of different departments. But for the last 7 years that I've been the department representative director here, this has been the most meaningful job of all of the jobs that I've had in the city of Long Beach, because this job with our disaster preparedness staff and our 911 staff, along with police and fire, we service our residents at the time of their greatest need. And I can't think of a better way of spending my day than being in this office with this tremendous staff. You started off, council members, saying, right, disasters can happen anytime. We've seen that. We saw how quickly Hurricane Hillary came upon the city. Luckily, we didn't get the full brunt of that. We saw the fires over in Maui and the devastation and destruction that can bring. So again, Councilman, we thank you for this opportunity to discuss disaster preparedness. We have tons of resources on our website. We are available to come out and make presentations at other community events. And as Sarah said, we are always hiring dispatchers. So we are constantly open. It's one of the few positions in the city that is continuously open. We don't close recruitment for dispatchers. It's such a critical need. And across the country, there are shortages in dispatch. In Long Beach, we're doing very, very well. We've got about 85 to 90% of our positions filled, and I think we've got about 15 to 17 dispatchers in training right now. So we're happy to provide additional information on our 911 dispatchers and that process as well. Join LB 911, you'll find it on our website. That does conclude our presentation, Council. We're all available to answer questions.
Go ahead, Annie.
Yes, thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. Also, feel free to type in your question in the chat as well. And as we're waiting for people to think of questions, I do have one. Can you explain more about the translation services available, and also what is TTY and how do people access that?
Yes, for our translation service, what we do is the citizen will call 911 or the non-emergency line, depending on their needs, and they'll ask for a translator, or the dispatcher will realize that there is a language barrier. We'll do our best to recognize the language, and we'll connect with our translator. It's a three-way conversation between us, the citizen, and the translator. A lot of times, if the dispatcher doesn't recognize exactly what language is needed, the translator service is a huge assistance to help provide that translator service. And it's simply, I ask a question like, what is your location? The translator will then repeat it to the citizen, who will then repeat it to the translator, who will repeat it back to the dispatcher. And that's how it works. The first thing that we'll ask normally is, do you need police, fire, or paramedics for the translator service? That way we can quickly utilize who's going to have to use the translator. TTY is a service that our deaf community members have, and it's also provided into our Vesta phone system. And so this Vesta phone system that we have recognizes that it's a TTY call, and it immediately pops up a box that looks similar to a text message to the eyes. And that way we can switch over our screen properly and type to them back and forth and get the correct information that way. We're also able to transfer on that system. So if we need to transfer to paramedics or another agency, we're able to do that as well.
A great question, Annie. And as Sarah said during her presentation, that translation service is almost instantaneous. Once a dispatcher understands what language is needed, there are 150 different languages that the service provider that we have makes available. They're available to us 24 hours a day. And I think that Sarah mentioned that we use the Spanish translations of Kamai on a daily basis. So by all means, we don't want language to be a barrier to calling for assistance from our police and fire. Just call, we'll figure it out on the fly exactly what language interpreter we need.
That's great. It's wonderful to hear.
So I have a question about preparing kits. I think that I don't really know how much people, I think it's encouraged a lot to put together kits at home, but also in your car too, right? So I think that's kind of where, how do we support residents who may not have the financial means to buy these additional kits that, you know, that they may not want to spend that money to, and then have to update because it gets expired, right? It seems like it should be a priority, but how can we, what are ways do you think we can assist a resident who may need help in getting them? And I don't know if it's putting it together and maybe doing, I think you guys used to give away these kits when you had more money, but I don't know if that's something our office could help just demonstrate or do when we do these kind of tabling at events.
So you're right, Councilmember, and we're very, very cognizant of that as well. When in a lot of communities, when you know, we're saying, you know, put away 5 days of supplies, 7 days of supplies that you have on hand just for an emergency. We know that there are a number of neighborhoods in Long Beach where residents, they can't afford to do that. Those supplies are needed every day to feed their families, feed their loved ones. And so we really try to make it as simple as possible, and we recommend to residents to make it just as simple as possible. You don't need an elaborate bag that's put away. You need some spare shoes, spare tennis shoes that need to be in there. Obviously, you're going to need some medication. And then just whatever kinds of commodities that you use on a daily basis. Maybe you can't put 5 days of supplies away. Maybe all you can do is put 2 days of supplies away. And that's fine. We get that. And our goal is to get people the help that they need as quickly as we can. whether that means that we need to quickly get residents into a shelter or the medical services that they need. That is the role of government. And we're just asking residents to help us to the extent that they can. We would also, Councilman, you asked about your office. We've worked, prior to the pandemic, we worked with a neighborhood program whereby we encourage residents to come together as a neighborhood, recognizing who needs help in the neighborhood, right? Who are the elderly people that need help? Who are the people that have mobility issues or limitations? Where are the neighbors where the kids at home, like at 3 o'clock, and we know that parents don't arrive until 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So that neighborhood program is one that we'd be happy to come out and talk with the neighbors about forming these kinds of neighborhood, neighbor-to-neighbor kind of assistance programs. So, and again, through that, then we can identify maybe one neighbor has the ability to have lots of resources available, and maybe that's where we kind of pool some of our resources as a neighborhood. Maybe some other neighbor has all kinds of tools, gadgets, ladders. I think when Rebecca was talking about, they have skills like they're a retired nurse or a retired electrician, all of those kinds of things. So we'd be happy as well to roll that program out. Obviously, we suspended that program during COVID-19. Things are getting a bit better now, and so we're looking for opportunities to work with council officers and work with neighbors so just get that program out again.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the reminder for people to know that they don't have to buy these fancy, expensive disaster preparedness backpack that they sell for a lot of money when you can just put them together yourself. Thank you.
You can just put them together yourself. And one of the benefits when we were doing our neighborhood program is that we were able to reward neighborhoods that really organized themselves to be effective. And part of that graduation program is that we would give them one of those backpacks that contains a lot of the things that they would need in an emergency. Obviously not food, but a lot of the other resources that they would need.
Thank you. That's really interesting to hear. I'll reach out again to learn more about the neighborhood program. It's really interesting. I think our neighborhood association, I could think of a couple who might be interested in that possibly. But it is nearing 7 p.m. So thank you so much to our disaster preparedness team, Director Reggie Harrison, Sarah Ortiz, and Rebecca Lopez for the amazing presentation tonight. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you found this informational, and of course, get a go bag, get a stay bag, and work together. You don't have to get the fanciest, latest equipment. And before we wrap up, I just want to remind everyone that Saturday is dump day. So we are partnering with Clean California, and so on Saturday from 9 to 12 p.m., there will be 6 dumpsters located throughout our district. I'll share the flyer. Jasmine, if you could share the flyer in the chat, that'd be great. So if you have any bulky items, feel free to go and dump it in the bin. And it's all free. And also, please save the date. We do have a District 6 Aquarium Night on October 23rd. It's free admission to District 6 residents. So, of course, we'll send out more information about that. So if you want to learn more, follow Councilwoman's Facebook, social media, Instagram. And also, we do have a newsletter as well. Feel free to subscribe on, just email district6@longbeach.gov. And that's that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.